Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I've had a whole raft of people send me this story from USA Today, and it has to do with that qualified immunity that police have. Supreme Court sides with 83-year-old woman forced to her knees during a traffic stop. And this is one that sounds like mistakes were made. The question is, can the police be held accountable for those mistakes? The woman's name is Elise Brown. She's a little over 5 feet tall, and she weighed 117 pounds when she's ordered out of her blue Oldsmobile by police in California back in 2019. Yes, this case has dragged through the courts for 4 years. She is also 83 years old. 83 years old. So picture this, and I don't care what kind of imagination you've got. Imagine an 83-year-old who is 5 feet tall and weighs 117 pounds. Okay, you got that picture in your head? The officers pulled her over because they thought the car she was driving had been stolen. Now, it turns out they were mistaken. The car was not stolen. However, they followed protocol, they say, when they drew their guns, handcuffed her, and forced her to her knees. 83 years old, 5 feet tall, $117. A federal appeals court this year ruled that she can sue the police for excessive force, waiving the legal doctrine known as qualified immunity. That, of course, is what protects police from liability for civil rights violations in many circumstances. And so here's the thing. A lot of people are going to say, but Steve, come on. She was on her knees for a brief period of time at the side of the road. That's not a billion-dollar case. We're not saying it's any particular kind of case other than a viable one. Remember, she simply wants the right to bring her case and have it heard by a court, and the case was thrown out because the courts had said you cannot do this. So when the Court of Appeals said, yes, she can, well, they ran to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, yes, she can. So now she'll get her day in court, maybe 5 years after it happened. And of course, now she's 87 or 88 years old. And talk about running out the clock on somebody. The Supreme Court on Monday let the lower court ruling stand, keeping her lawsuit alive. At a time when the nation is grappling with fatal police confrontations, the Supreme Court has mostly balked at lawsuits questioning the legal immunity extended to officers. Police organizations have long counted officers need immunity in cases when they must defend themselves, and split-second decisions can lead to an unforeseen tragedy. They're often talking about officer safety. Officer safety. Now, I am, believe it or not, a big champion of officer safety. And so when they walk up very carefully and ask to see, like, is there, roll your back window down so I can see your back seat, I got no problem with that. Officer walks from the passenger side, looks in the car, I got no problem with that. Officers being armed, again, no problem with that. But when they encounter a woman who is 83 years old, 5 feet tall, weighs 117 pounds, I don't know how many people would say, for officer safety, get her out of the car and put her on her knees. Me? Maybe. If you pull me over, of course, I'm 6'2", and I weigh a little bit more than 117. But her, no, she's literally half my size, and I don't mean height. The Chino Police Department officers argue they are simply following the protocol. Traffic stops for potentially stolen vehicles are high risk under city and state standards, and so they said that they asked her to kneel. Now, they say she's only asked to kneel for 20 seconds, and she's only in handcuffs for 3 minutes. And again, yeah, that's not a lot of time. It's not like they pushed her face down and hog-tied her and left her there for half an hour. I concede all of that. However, she's asking to put this in front of a jury. A jury very well could say, ma'am, 20 seconds and 3 minutes. You don't get much for that. You might not get anything for that. But she's got the right to tell the story to a jury, and that's all she wanted. So there you go. The officers deployed firearms in states of readiness consistent with their responsibilities in the scene of a high-risk stop, according to the attorneys for the police arguing to the Supreme Court. Brown, they said, appeared to be in her 50s or early 60s. and appeared not to need any accommodation due to her health or frailty. So they're saying, hey, she looked like she was in her 50s. She looked a lot younger. Now, normally it's not a great excuse when you're telling somebody she looked younger. But here, 83 years old. And don't get me wrong, it might be a compliment to say, oh my gosh, I thought you were in your 50s. I find that a compliment. But I have a hard time imagining that they walk up to a Buick. I mean, let's start with the operative legal facts here. It's a Buick. It was blue. Now, some people go, Steve, are you making fun of blue cars? No, I'm not. I am not. And by the way, at the end of this video, I'll tell you something exciting about blue cars. However, and this is important, I said Buick earlier. It's a blue Oldsmobile. It's a blue Oldsmobile. So yes, I am going to poke a little bit of fun at somebody who pulls over a blue Oldsmobile, approaches it, and there's an 83-year-old woman in the front seat, and they haul her out, put her on her knees, and handcuff her. Yes, I have the right to make fun of that. Absolutely. So she filed her lawsuit back in 2020, saying that the police used excessive force and unreasonably detained her. And so I think the key here is the excessive force. So according to her attorneys, she was terrified, humiliated, and emotionally traumatized. That conduct was not reasonable. It was extraordinarily dangerous and flatly inconsistent with the Fourth Amendment's prohibition on excessive force. And so, police do have to play it by ear in different circumstances. They walk up to one guy who's driving an old Explorer at night. He's got all the dome lights on, window rolled down, hands on the steering wheel, and he's very, very polite. Yes, sir, no, sir. They get that. On the other hand, they roll up to another car. It's got the windows all the way up, all the way around, and they're dark. There's smoked glass. They don't know who's in there, how many people are in there. They got to knock on the window. Person cracks the window this far. Yeah, can I help you? So they encounter different things at every stop. And if you look at it from the police perspective, they're playing a form of roulette, like traffic stop roulette. What am I going to get? Am I going to get somebody who's just screaming and yelling at me? Or am I going to get some person who's high on something, high-speed chicken feed? Or are we going to encounter somebody who's an 83-year-old woman who's 5 feet tall and weighs 117 pounds? I would actually think that based on just these facts, that's probably the least threatening thing they encounter. Probably. Now, in a blue Oldsmobile, I still think that helps here, but it does seem like somebody should have said, especially as they're pulling her out of the car and they realize they almost throw her off the ground because she's so light. Oh, she's not a threat. And by the way, it appears they determined she wasn't a threat very quickly because she was only on her knees for 20 seconds and in handcuffs for 3 minutes. Now, I will tell you, I've never been in handcuffs, so I can't speak to that. But I've seen a lot of people get handcuffed because I watch videos on YouTube. And a lot of people freak out. They freak out even more when they get put in a jail cell. Now, she wasn't put in a jail cell, but she was handcuffed. I wonder if she's ever been handcuffed before. She's been around a bit. She's 83 years old. I bet she hasn't been. So, again, understand this procedurally. The Supreme Court doesn't say write her a big check. The Supreme Court says give her a trial if this case doesn't settle. Let her tell her case to a jury. And a jury can decide. And by the way, a jury could come back within their rights and say, we heard this and we still think the police were right. They're as right as the day is long. They could come back and say that. In which case, she got her day in court and everyone's happy. Everyone's happy. So there you go. Supreme Court sides with 83-year-old woman forced to her knees during traffic stop. John Fritz wrote that for USA Today. And Elise Brown is all of 5 feet tall, 117 pounds, and 83 years old, driving a blue Oldsmobile. And just so you know that I'm not making fun of blue cars, I mentioned, and many of my long-term viewers will know this, over a year ago I mentioned I ordered a new car. I said I've ordered a brand new car. And when it gets here, I'll tell you all about it. And time came and went. Calendar days came flying off in fast motion like they do in the movies. And a year blew by, and people started going, Steve, where's your car? As I was saying to my dealer, dude, where's my car? I should make a movie about this. And my dealer actually had been informing me where my car was. It was being built. It was actually being put together, constructed, manufactured, assembled parts. It's a real throwback there. And my dealer called me about a week ago and said, Steve, your car is done. It's going to get delivered. And it's going to get delivered this week. So I will have my new car this week. Downside, I'm in Michigan. It's December. Now, we've had a stretch of warm weather, and there's no snow on the ground. I'm looking out the window right now. There's no snow on the ground, but it's about 40 degrees here right now. And so I won't be able to get a lot of driving time in with that car this winter because of the fact, I can give you a couple, I'm still going to tease you on this. It doesn't have a roof. It's designed that way. And it's blue. So, I don't know if I'll ever have any interactions with the police while I'm in this car. I hope not. But when they walk up to the car, I won't have to roll anything down because there won't be anything to roll down. But what type of car it is, et cetera, I will unveil that when I've got good photographs of it. And I should be getting good photographs of that very, very soon. So I will give you more details as they become necessary. This is all on a need-to-know basis. And I hate to talk about things that haven't happened yet. And so I have not laid my own eyes on that car yet. So I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I'm going to let you know it's not an Oldsmobile. It's not a Corvette, by the way. A lot of people guess it was a Corvette. It's not a Corvette. But it is, in fact, blue. All will become clear shortly. But there's a story a lot of people sent it. Thank you very much. Supreme Court sides with 83-year-old woman forced to her knees during a traffic stop. Supreme Court says, yes, her lawsuit can proceed. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Some people walk in the rain. Others just get wet.